and welcome to this week's training in business immigration. I'm Chad Graham from the law firm of Graham Adair, and I'm joined by my partner, Sam Adair. Sam, say hi to all our friends out there in the business immigration world.
Hi, everybody. Real excited to be here, and we've got a fun and challenging topic today, I think.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. So what we're going to be talking about today is business travel to the United States. We're going to talk through what the options are, what the limitations might be, what the timing looks like, and potential pitfalls to avoid. So with that, let's jump right in, Sam. What are the options people have when they're looking to do business travel to the United States?
This is something that should be so simple because there are really only two options for people who want to come to the US as business travelers. There's the B visa, which requires a visit to the consulate and a stamp in your passport. And then there's what's known as the Visa Waiver Program. Sometimes it's called the ESTA. That is a program that allows nationals and passport holders from certain countries to travel to the US for business purposes without a visa. And you would think with just these two options that this would be very simple, but Chad, as we're going to see, this is something that can get quite complex.
Awesome. Okay, good to know. So then those who are looking to come here, how long can they actually stay, whether they're on the B or the visa waiver?
When somebody wants to come to the United States with a B visa in their passport, they're able to come into the US for up to 180 days. Under the Visa Waiver Program, the most time that somebody's going to be granted upon admission to the US is 90 days. Under the B visa, that 180 days in theory could be extended if there was an emergent need to do so. An individual on a B could also change status to another non-immigrant classification, whereas under the Visa Waiver Program, with some of its conveniences, it is very limited in that you can really be here for no more than 90 days. There's no ability to extend, and you cannot change to another status from the Visa Waiver admission.
Okay. And then some people do this all the time and they're very familiar, but for those who are not or who need a refresher, tell us a little bit about what that process looks like.
Absolutely. Let's start with the B visa process. So in order to get a B visa, an individual is going to have to go online, make an appointment at a US consulate or embassy. They're going to have to fill out some application forms online and then carry some additional supporting documentation showing ties to their home country and an invitation from an entity in the US or from a business that's having them travel to the United States and kind of state the purpose of their trip. That whole process right now can take anywhere from several weeks to several months. So it's important to plan as far in advance as possible if you may need a B visa to travel to the United States. On the other hand, the Visa Waiver Program really requires very little from somebody other than a passport from a visa waiver eligible country, and then that individual go online and register their trip to the United States through the State Department's ESTA website at least 72 hours in advance of their travel. They'll get email confirmation that they've done that, and then they'll be able to travel to the United States. The Visa Waiver Program is obviously a huge advantage over having to get the B visa stamp in the passport. And there are a few restrictions. Previous visa denials or previous removal from the United States would make somebody ineligible for that Visa Waiver Program. But many business travelers qualify for it, and it really makes their lives so much simpler.
Awesome. Thanks for providing that, Sam. Okay, so now that we've had a warm up, we're getting to the heart of the question. And this is a question that we as a firm answer multiple times a day. And I think it's because there's a temptation, with the work visa, it tends to be a longer process, tends to be more cumbersome. So a lot of people think, well, maybe I'll just come in as a business visitor. Can I do that? So the question is, what are things that people can actually do while they're in the United States as a business visitor?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I think that the purpose of the business visitor program, whether it's the visa or the visa waiver, is to allow individuals to come to the US to have meetings, to carry out negotiations, sometimes to participate in, sales trainings, things like that, to also have sales meetings and to sell potentially or close contracts. There are a number of things that are permissible. It's often easier to talk about what's not allowed under the B visa than I think to sort of list off everything that you can do on it. And an easy way to think about this is if there is another non-immigrant visa that would specifically cover the activity that you're contemplating carrying out in the United States, that activity is probably not going to be allowed under the B visa. For example, You can't study here in the United States on a B visa. You're not allowed to seek employment. You have a limited scope of things that can be done. And largely, I think those things are kind of penned in by other visa classifications that are available. So it's a bit of a fine line between what constitute employment and permissible activity. But I think that any compensation from an entity in the US would be problematic under a B. And so it's important to really plan in advance, because even though those work visas may be more cumbersome, oftentimes they are going to be required to cover activities that otherwise somebody might want to try to do on a B.
And Sam, is your thinking about somebody who's potentially coming to the United States as a business visitor, or a company who's looking to get their hands around their business traveler program, is there anything else you would advise?
So, two major things that companies really need to think about are having a business traveler program where they're screening individuals who are coming to the United States for both purpose and duration, and then also having a program to track how long somebody's inside the United States. Obviously, you want to know who's here and you want to know why they're here to avoid issues where employees might go a little bit rogue on a B visa and, whether intentionally or not, end up doing work in the United States under the wrong visa classification. That's something that could come back to haunt the company and that individual down the road. The other issue that you really want to look at or track is the number of days that somebody's in the United States, because there are tax implications for individuals once they hit a certain number of days in the US. I am not a tax expert, so I'm not going to speak to that any more than that, but definitely companies should consult with their accountants to make sure that they understand those restrictions on the number of days that somebody can spend in the US, whether or not they're on US payroll, and avoid those taxation issues here.
Fantastic. It's one of those areas that seems so straightforward, especially for people who do this all the time. But it is one of those areas that has a lot of potential pitfalls as well. And it can have significant implications for the company. For example, if somebody is making, what is deemed a fraudulent application through a particular consular post, and that consular post becomes aware, they can actually shut down applications from other people from that company. So it can have a big impact. There can be financial impact as well. So it's something that companies should really be paying attention to and tracking and monitoring. Those who are traveling should make sure their company is aware. And in most instances, I would say to consult with their immigration attorney as well to be sure that they're on solid footing. Sam, this has been really fruitful, very good conversation. Thanks for all the information, and thanks to all of you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great week.